Hello. Welcome to part 2 of creating our folio. This time I have actually done some tests on the other folio. I did also amend the spine, so that's now thicker. This is now a wider spine. However, if you have not yet started making one of these, I would recommend this spine between these two is 2 centimetres, so increasing that by 1 centimetre, and this one is 3 centimetres, because we're going to be rather limited on what we can put in this. However, I have a new plan for what I'm going to use this folio for. It's not going to be full of ephemera and bits and pieces because there just isn't the space. What I have today is 4 sheets of cardstock. I've also got a little scrap. You know these bits that we often don't use? I've got a piece of that and another little scrap over there. We can start to fill the inside of our folio. I'm going to be sewing a little bit, but it's not necessary. This could all just be glued. The first thing I'm going to do is decide which cardstock I want where. This one is going to be almost completely covered up, so I'm going to put this here. I've got my post-it note and my pen at the ready, along with my ruler. I need the height. And I apologise also for the microphone yesterday. When I was viewing it on my software, the microphone wasn't showing in the shot. However, when I edited, I realised it was. So I apologise for that in the video. Again, today it's not showing, but I don't know if it's going to show in the shot until I actually get to the editing stage. So I apologise for that. I'm going to measure. So we have 25.2 centimetres, and the width, I'm going to use this as a guide, but I'm going to come in very slightly because I don't want it right to the edge. I do want to cover up all of this inside paper, so I'm going to make this 16.5 centimetres. So that's going to be piece 1. I'm going to stick that on there. Now this side, I need another piece at the back. This piece, actually no, because I want to use, that's so beautiful. Why is there 2 really awesome sides? I'm going to change that. I'm going to have this one. I'm going to have this one the same, so those 2 will be the same. And for the top and the bottom of this piece, I'm going to use this. So it's going to be the same width, which is 16.5, and for the height, I want, this is going to be a bottom pocket, and I want the pocket about, let's say almost halfway. So I'm just going to, these are not precise measurements, I'm just going to cut a couple of pieces of cardstock. I'm going to roughly do it at half the height, which is 13 centimetres, and then I'm going to add 2 centimetres as a flap. So this is going to be 15 centimetres. 15 centimetres high and 16.5 wide. And then I'm also, this is not going to be wide enough to do both pieces. That's also going to be a bit of a shame. Okay, I'm going to cut these pieces now so I can decide where I go with the other pieces. I'm just going to put this on here. So I'm going to speed up the cutting. I'm going to have a little test now to see whether, so this is going to be a pocket here, and I need a flap to come over, and that is not, oh, it might just about be big enough. So I'm going to use this piece here. I could do a very tiny, I want room to cut a little notch out here and this cover that notch, but then I also need a small amount at the top there. So what I'm going to do is I need to use my scoreboard to make a fold. I'm going to line these up and roughly work out where I can put those with that, and make sure I've got a little bit of an overhang here. I think that's probably enough of an overhang. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pen and I'm just going to put a little, actually it's going to come down a little bit, roughly there and roughly here. Okay, so that's going to be the inside. That's going to attach to this piece here. So those three pieces go together. Just going to pop that like so. And now I'm going to work on what I want to happen over here. And again, I'm going to use this as my flap, because then I can see that beautiful writing on that side. Okay, so post-it note. This is 25.2, so I need to make that 25.2. It will probably go up that way, but that's actually a nice width. I'll measure that and tell you how wide it is. It's 14 centimetres. So that's got to be cut. And then this piece needs to be the same height again, so 25.2, but I only want it to come just over half of the width. So I'm going to make that a nice and even 10 centimetres. These are the parts for these two sides. Now I'm going to round my corner of this piece here, the top flap, and I don't like this corner chomper at all, but I can't find my other one. And this one I'm going to use a circle punch. This is a 1.5 inch circle punch, and I'm just going to take a little notch out of there, doing it by eye. So we've got that started, and I'm going to round the corners on this flap too. I always find it's hit and miss. I get it right in that corner, but I still find it doesn't always work correctly. Now what I want to do is make a little notch at the halfway point. I don't want to actually crease it, just put the little notch in, and I'm going to do it on the reverse side because it's going to be easier to see. So I'm going to just put a little tiny pen mark where the halfway mark is, and then I'm going to use my corner chomper again, my circle punch again, and take out two really small notches about the centre of each one. And that's done by eye. So that's going to go there, that's going to go there, and these are going to go here. So I'm going to grab my scoreboard. Excuse the paint. Sorry about the paint. So that's going to go nicely onto here, and I'm going to just gauge this roughly. I want to make sure there's a nice overlap here. I want a little bit of space here. I want about 1 centimetre to tuck behind. So I'm just going to turn this over, and obviously my scoreboard is in inches, so I'm going to say 1 centimetre is roughly, looks about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to score on that 1/2 inch line. Okay. Now I'm going to do the next line across, and the next line across, and the next line across. And if we had more space in our folio, that's going to give us a nice little fold like you do on your file folders, you know. Can you see those little score lines? Just here. So that is cut ready for there, and this is going to go there. Now I'm just going to work out where we're putting these score lines on this one. I just want to make sure we've got that little overlap. I'm gonna actually, I'll turn this round. I just want to score maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines in. That will do, I think. Maybe a little bit too much. So that's going to attach here. So on this side, I'm going to come in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and do my score line. If you have 2 pieces of paper, cardstock, the same, that's brilliant. So there is our flap for that. Okay, now I want a bit of a gusset on this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my post-it note. I have a lot of trouble with numbers. That's one of the reasons I don't measure very often. And when I do measure, I have to really concentrate. And I don't like concentrating too much on a project because it takes some of the fun away from it. This is 13 centimetres. So I want my gusset strips to be 12 centimetres, about 1 centimetre smaller. I'm going to use this scrap piece. I'm not going to have to open this up. I want 2 12 centimetre strips, and I want these to be about 2 inches, give or take. And I use inches for this, not centimetres, because that's what my scoreboard is in. These particular pieces of paper, they don't really matter what they look like. Now, we've cut it at 2 inches. I want to do a score line halfway, which is 1 inch, and then one at the 1.5 inches and one at 1/2 inch. So what we want to do is fold this to make a little W, like so. And these are going to fit on here nicely. I'm going to bring my board into ink. And we're going to work on this whole section first. Let's do this bottom piece. We're now ready to construct this piece, what I'm going to do first of all is just line these up, folding them over my edges. I'm going to take my ruler and my pen. Now, like I said, I'm going to do a little bit of sewing on here. Try and keep that in place. Just going to line my ruler up. So 16.5, half of 16 is 8, and then so an 8.25 centimeters. I'm going to bring that down to the edge of my flap, and I want roughly 8.25 centimeters. That's about halfway. I'm just going to put a little dot there, and then by eye I'm going to put another dot here. That one's actually not high enough up. I'm going to move that up a bit. Okay, so I've now got my 2 dots. What I did with my scrap paper, using my 1-inch hole punch, I cut out some circles. This one I've already done. This one I have to do still. I'm going to glue 3 circles together. A thickness of 3 seems to be pretty good for this. There are 2 choices for creating our little circles. Now for the top one, I'm going to use an eyelet, and I'm going to use an eyelet because it's the least offensive method showing on the inside. This one, I'm going to use a split pin. I'm going to use the little screw head one. So let's do the bottom one first. I'm going to, by eye, find the middle, roughly, of my circle. I need to put a fairly decent hole in this so the brad goes through. And I'm going to start the hole for that bottom section as well. So I'm going to take the split pin, put that in the hole. Haven't made that big enough. And put it through. I think I want the screw head to be that way. Now I don't want to make this too tight. But on the inside, I'm just going to open up that split pin. And like I said, I haven't made it too tight. I've left a gap under here. Now this side, because we're going to put papers in this side, so I'm going to just add a little bit of glue. Take a small piece of any kind of tape. This is a little piece of surgical tape. And I'm just going to glue that down, but I'm going to turn it over and push from the outside. And that just means we can slide things in, and it's going to slide past that split pin quite nicely. That's the top, the bottom one. Now the top one I'm going to do slightly differently. I am, however, going to still use my pen this time, find the middle of that disc, and I'm going for that top hole. Now this time I need my hole punch. I'm going to line this up in my, and what I do is I bring this down slightly and just touching so I can move it around until I know I'm on that hole or that little dot that I've made, and hopefully that's reasonably centered. That's not bad, I've done worse. And then I'm going to do the same on the top cover. So we've got our 2 holes. I'm going to move that ready to put my eyelet in. So take my split pin, pop the eyelet through the disc and then pop the eyelet through here. Once that's set up, you can put it into your crocodile and set that. So that's not too bad. I'm going to just tighten that a little bit. So we now have this. Okay. Now I'm only going to do a small amount of sewing. I'm not going to do a lot of sewing on here. And what I need to do next is get these into place. And what you want to do is you want to have the crease against the outside, not the flat piece of paper. You need the crease. So what I'm going to do, how I do this, is I'm going to turn the pocket over, glue the first edge, we want a reasonable amount of glue here, but the bit that's attached to this we're also going to sew, and then I'm going to just line my edge up with the crease in my hinge, gusset, strip, whatever you call it. Just make sure that's straight and push that down. So that's our first one in place. And now I'm going to do the same with the other side. You want to line them up at the top, so you've got a little bit of gap at the bottom. You want the gap here. Make sure that's nicely in place. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a straight stitch around here. I'm not sure if I'm going to go across the top there, and then I'm going to do a straight stitch around here. I'll be right back. These are now sewn. Had a bit of a moment with my sewing machine. That line is very wonky, and the one along here. I have a new setup for my sewing machine and didn't realise I had a set of drawers. So as this goes through the set of the sewing machine, the drawers are here, and of course it kind of went a little bit wonky. Kind of part where it all comes together. I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to glue this flap here. Make sure I get those edges. Slide this into place. Nice, lovely. And now I'm going to glue these, and we have to do both at once. You could also use a score tape. I'm going to use score tape to attach this to my book, as well as some glue. But you could just use score tape on here if you prefer to use a tape. Now I'm going to hold these closed, push that into place, and very quickly before it starts to dry, make sure these are nicely lined up with the edge. That's pretty good. I mean, that would just make a nice pocket. If you didn't want to put the top flap on, you didn't have to do that. But we are going to glue on our flap. So add my glue. Same again, just line it up, make sure that's in a good position. And this, I'm using art glitter glue and it dries super fast. So that is our little flappy pocket for the middle section. So let's get that into place, shall we? Why not? Why not? It's done. Now, I have my score tape. And like I said, I'm using a combination of score tape and glue and cotton, apparently. So now the score tape is on, I'm going to just go around with a little bit of glue. It's just too big an area really to use so much glue. There was a time where I would have been chucking on the Fabri-Tac, but I just don't see the need. I think this art glitter glue is pretty strong. The score tape is pretty good. So I'm happy to use a combination of the two for something like this. And of course, it doesn't matter if you get your tape, glue on your tape. It doesn't matter if you get glue on your tape, that's fine. Now this is where you have to be super careful because like I said, you don't get any wiggle room with this score tape. I know I have 1 millimetre or so top and bottom. Put that in place and then you are committed pretty quickly. There we go. So far it shuts quite nicely still. So that's our first pocket in, sorted, good to go. This one is going to be a very similar construction. I am going to put gussets here and here. I'm going to sew in the same way, except I'm also going to glue down the centre of this particular piece. So I'm just going to go and have my lunch and then I'll be back to finish filming part 2. I've had my lunch and I've edited the first part of the video. Now I'm going to just talk through what I've done. I forgot to add the little flap, so I used about 1 centimetre, just folded that over. I did exactly the same principle to make my little, I'm not sure what these are called, gussets or whatever. I've inked everything. What I have decided is that's upside down, so I may have the pocket this way round. I haven't quite decided yet. Now on the other practice I did, I put a pocket here, which I may still do, but I'm going to do it in a different way if I do that, because I just love this paper and I don't have any more of it. That was the last sheet in the whole wide world, I think. What I'm going to do next is sew this. I'm doing a bit of a different closure on this than I did on the other one. I'm going to have a circle and that's just going to slot in. I may have to sew that as well, but what I'm going to do is sew around here, and I'm also going to sew down this. I've made a small crease line there, and I'm going to sew around here, and I will be back That was nice and quick and easy. I'm now going to glue this into place. Exactly the same kind of process as the middle section. Okay, that's now done. This section is now done, and it's decision time which way round in my folder I'm going to have it. Am I going to have it this way so it opens inwards, or am I going to have it this way so it opens outwards? Ooh. Ooh, what do we think? I think I'm going to have it opening inwards. I think I'm going to have it that way. I know it means this lady is upside down, but oh, I don't know now. Yeah, I think I'm going to have it this way. I think I'm going that way. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing again. I will speed it up as I add my tape and my glue. And hold your breath. I can already see I've left a little bit more at the top than the bottom. Right, we now have pockets and a pocket. The plan was going to be to add a notebook and add various things. What it is going to be now is probably some kind of paper and envelopes. So it's going to be a little stationery folio. All I want to do now is add a closure here. So I'm just going to grab a little circle. I found this tiny piece of Tim Holtz ephemera, this little piece of Tim Holtz ephemera. It kind of works perfectly with this. It's not really thick enough, so I'm just going to back this onto a little piece of cardstock. Perfect, and I'm going to glue this into place. I'm not actually going to worry about stitching it. What I want to do is make sure it just needs a little bit of an amount to tuck. But what I need to be careful of is when I put something in here, there's still a little tuck spot. So I'm going to glue this. This glue should be plenty strong enough. And I realised I actually used my embroidery scissors. Ooh, big no-no, really. Shouldn't have done that. So I'm just going to take that out for now to give that a little moment to dry. That should fit in there nicely, and then even if this bulks out a little bit, there's still going to be a little bit of space there to put that in. Okay, so part 2 is done. Now the moment of truth. It's still just about closes. We're going to obviously need a closure on here of some sort, but it's still just about closes. I really do wish I'd have made these spines bigger, so little note for you guys if you do make one. I hope you enjoyed that. I will be back tomorrow with part 3.